Time for Back Pages tonight, right here on Sky Sports News, as we bring you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight, the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross and the Sun's football editor Charlie Wyett. Good evening to you both. We'll speak to you shortly. Let's run you through the Back Pages as they stand right now. Manchester City making a lot of headlines at the moment, and their line is on how the EFL might be impacted by them taking the Premier League to court, and the picture there of Luke Shaw, who might be timing his return to the first team fray and also the international fold perfectly for the Euros. Let's move on to the Telegraph. City chief and new swipe at critics again. The Manchester City versus Premier League story is dominant. Luke Shaw again is the man in the centre of the photo there. In the Express, guess what? It's Luke Shaw. Shaw looks good. Defenders return to England training, boosts Euros bid, and also cup salute for Burrow there on the right-hand side. Of course, Rob Burrow, who passed away at the weekend at the age of 41, being honoured and a tribute to him by the Challenge Cup final kicking off 7 minutes after 3. Back at the Guardian looks like this. We need peace to create our future. That's a picture of the Ukrainian high jumper Yulia Levchenko on her Olympic preparation mid-turmoil of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Premier League, amidst the VAR delays, skyrocketed last season. Also, they're twicking up security for final amid protest fears. That's the English Premiership final, which is coming up this weekend between Northampton Saints and Bath. Back of the Mail looks like this. Rivals fear that City legal win would kill league. Backlash against champions bid to throw out financial rules. We know this is the dominant story right now. Also, you can see there, eye on the ball. England get ready for final Euros warm-up match. It's Iceland who they face. Welcome once again to Charlie Wyett from The Sun and John Cross from The Mirror. Great to have your company. I mean, I guess there is only one place to start, and it's going to be the Times that we go to first, gents. And this is a really interesting take, isn't it, from Matt Lawson on City putting £900 million EFL deal at risk. Charlie, I think it's worth just, before we get to that bit, sort of unpacking why it is that it might have that potential knock-on effect. And this is, as I say, a very different angle taken by the Times on this story.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester City, they're making lots of headlines, aren't they? They're certainly not going to be making any friends, but they don't care, do they? They really don't care. And, this story relates to the £900 million sum of money that's due to be given to the EFL. But the fear are that a lot of the other Premier League clubs they're not going to want to part with that money because they just want to stick with it potentially, because if Manchester City are free to spend as much money as they are able to in terms of getting even bigger sponsorship deals, if they win this case, then the other clubs are going to just want to keep that money. So it's going to be properly sort of incredibly selfish situation. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised by all this, but it's pretty sad. And so while it's it's not just a Manchester City story, this could affect every single club, all 92 teams in English football, and of course 72 of those teams in the EFL. The majority of those clubs badly need that money. They really do, just to exist.
John, I'm going to just pick a few of the points up that Matt's written in this piece in the Times. They're bullet points that are detailed within the piece itself. It says the Times can now disclose further details of the civil war in English football's top flight. And here's one that is fascinating, but just shows where this conversation could go. Some clubs may pursue compensation claims totalling more than £1 billion against the English champions if they're found guilty of any or all of the 115 Premier League charges for breaches of financial regulations. The clubs have sought legal advice and could pursue what they call placing claims, i.e. compensation for not finishing above City in the league. And it's just worth saying, 115 charges due to be heard at a separate hearing in November, and City do deny any wrongdoing relating to those charges. But again, this could just, go on and on in terms of, claim, counterclaim, and trying to sue for these placing claims for up to, £1 billion. What do you make of it, John?
Yeah, the knock-on effect, David, is huge, really, and it is such a worry, I think, for clubs because you can't budget, and basically this is the point, isn't it? That when this legal action was first talked about, was first mentioned after a Premier League shareholders meeting, 3-4 months ago, I actually thought then, well, how on earth do kind of clubs prepare for that? And I do think you have seen delaying tactics, you've seen uncertainty, you've seen clubs really don't know where they are with it. I mean, it is ridiculous. And listen, I actually think that if you've got, as has also been suggested, 10 or 12 clubs ready and willing to give perhaps evidence and crucial evidence on the Premier League's favour, if you like, at this hearing, which begins next week, then it doesn't surprise me at all then that suddenly clubs think, with so much animosity going on, which is underlined by that, I think, that basically all of a sudden, if we've been robbed, as they see it, of prize money, and it is a significant sum for each place, then of course I think they're going to take sort of further legal action against Manchester City. That's the knock-on effect, really. So I do think, I think that this is almost the club saying, actually warning almost City, be careful what you do, because we'll counterclaim and sue you. This is the crux of it, is the absolute civil war. This is what really the damage. The ultimate damage that City's claim can do. Listen, we all expected, didn't we, that City would defend themselves to the hilt on the 115 charges. I don't think we perhaps saw this counterclaim, as perhaps part of that process, but I really think it is, and it leaves everything in tatters, because honestly, that you are talking about maybe up to about 25% of their budget that they have to budget for, the Premier League clubs, for that EFL sort of kind of deal, sort of the financial package that they offer to the 72 clubs, if you like. Well, who on earth can budget for that when the league is in total chaos at the moment?
It's interesting. One of the other points mentioned, the bullet points here, saying that that City, and they've got, the Times have actually got sort of had sight of this. City initially approved the recommended changes to these APT rules, the Associated Party Transaction rules, that now they are railing against, and they're claiming that are unlawful, anti-competitive. But the other one that I think is, such an incredibly powerfully put point in this is about the clubs not only wanting to try and get some sort of financial recompense with that billion figure that was discussed before, but also that they want to maybe not only sanction City with a points deduction, but maybe also apply rules that enable the league to expel a club from membership. I mean, this could be absolutely seismic if we are heading in that direction. Charlie, can you see it?
Well, it's certainly a possibility, and I think it's always been a possibility. Going back to when we first discovered the 115 charges, and the ill feeling from a lot of clubs towards Manchester City, and then a lot of clubs in the Premier League quite clearly want to see Manchester City, if found guilty, of course, to be hit with a huge points deduction, and certainly maybe expulsion, or just another huge points deduction for the second season. It would be so big that it would prevent them from getting promoted back from the Championship to the Premier League. I think everything's possible in terms of whether Manchester City are found guilty or not, and the punishment, which will be incredibly hefty. I mean, we know that, don't they? If they are found guilty, that they will be in deep trouble. There's no doubt about that. I think some people think it might just be a fine. Of course, it's not just, apart from the 115 charges, they have refused to cooperate with the Premier League. So they're going to be found guilty of that, whatever, we know that. It's going to be a crucial few months, a crucial year really now, not just for Manchester City, not just for the Premier League, but actually all 92 clubs and English football in general.
Let's move to the Mail and the exclusive by Ian Herbert and Mike Keegan. And talking about, I suppose, now the dynamic within the Premier League amongst its members, and which clubs could be thought to be siding with City, and which clubs are vehemently against what they're trying to do. And they're saying Mail Sport can reveal that Chelsea, Newcastle and Aston Villa are sympathetic to City's stance. Do you think that we're going to get this situation here, John, where this almost fractures the Premier League into bits, into pieces. And this is, really not just civil war, but just utter chaos, as you described it before.
Yeah, David, break down why those clubs might be sympathetic, if indeed they are sympathetic, as stated in that report. Is because, that they are the ones that are almost being restricted. They are the ones that are being questioned over PSR. Are they going to bust their limit? Do Aston Villa need to sell, for example? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, really, because it's obvious that some clubs, I think, feel frustrated about a lack of spending power. Is particularly, I think, pertinent to a Newcastle, for example, or a Villa, that really would like to do more in the market to make sure they're European football ready, if you like. And so I guess they feel as if, well, maybe these sort of kind of rules need looking at again, and really, what is the point? Do we need to sort of kind of review absolutely everything? And I think that there'll be other clubs feeling absolutely entrenched and really, really so annoyed with this Manchester City action. So I do think there'll be such a split down the middle between clubs. But I think at the heart of it, you really have found a situation whereby it undermines the whole league. I always see the Premier League, and indeed football, as the clubs belong to almost private members club. And basically, when they join, they have to sign up to a set of rules which they're not supposed to deviate from. And now all of a sudden, it feels like a few clubs are upset by spending rules, and they want to get out of that and sort of kind of do their own thing and go their own way. City at the heart of that, of course. But I do feel that the knock-on effect will create such bad feeling. The seeds were sown, weren't they, by the European Super League? There can be no doubt about it. And I have to say, that's never gone away, that anger and that frustration, I think, from the clubs that joined that. And you are just seeing that come to fruition again, really. But this will be, I mean, can you imagine? It's on Thursday in Harrogate. The atmosphere in the room between the 20 clubs who are all represented there, it's going to be absolutely toxic. And I think it's been brewing for a while, because honestly, this is not just the big clubs against the small clubs. It is a mixture of clubs on one side and a mixture of clubs on the other. And honestly, it really is civil war. The papers are absolutely bang on, I think.
Yeah, we've been, this season talking about these three-letter abbreviations, haven't we? VAR, PSR, and that other one, ESL, has come back too, John. And you're right, we were talking to, in fact, football finance expert Kieran Maguire, who was saying that if City were to lose this case, then, again, the spectre of the ESL could loom large for them. It could make them head that way rather than stay in the Premier League. And it's interesting, actually, looking inside the Telegraph with their take on this, Charlie. Again, another interesting one. They've sort of got this little infographic. You can see it sort of to the centre towards the top there of where clubs stand on legal row. 12 back the Premier League, 6 currently neutral, 1 back Man City and 1 are Man City. Newcastle, though, backing away from joining, they say. Saudi-owned club to take a neutral stance at talks today. They're reluctant to outwardly join forces with Manchester City in the Premier League civil war over state-sponsored spending freedoms. State-sponsored spending freedoms, reluctant to outwardly join forces. What's your read on that, Charlie?
I think, potentially what they're saying publicly and what they're thinking privately might be two different things. I mean, previously, it's been Newcastle who have not been always, totally happy with the limits that are currently in place. But I think at the moment, they're certainly not stupid, PR-wise. I can see why they want to distance themselves from Manchester City, who are pretty much, in the eyes of all football fans, I think, the majority of football supporters and people within the game, is public enemy number one.
John, I just want to, on this topic, just to leave the final word to you, just look into your crystal ball just for the moment, because I know we're going to have this meeting in Harrogate. The Premier League teams, you say, you could probably, just really feel the tension, even not being inside the room. You can just imagine it. But how do you see this playing out in the sort of, like, let's say, the short term? And ultimately, we know that things will be dictated by what happens in November when this case comes to light. But in the intervening period, what do you sense is the way that things might go?
Look, it is so interesting. I've doorstepped so many of these meetings and kind of, seen so many club executives leave rooms where you think, wow, that's, something really toxic has happened in there. And yet they all almost have their sort of say, row in the room and then leave it and kind of almost keep a dignified silence. So I do think they to a large extent, they will get on with business as usual. there is no doubt about it at all that I think there's a simmering mistrust and discontent amongst some clubs towards others about it. They don't have to be friends, and certainly they're not. But I do think at the moment, until we have this resolved, the actual legal case we're talking about starts on Monday and will drag on for a couple of weeks. And I think we'll know fairly soon after that kind of the outcome of this one. But then we sort of kind of play into sort of the later hearing in the year. And that case could take, 4 to 6 weeks, we read yesterday. So I do think there'll be a lot of anger and mistrust in the room, but I'm always amazed at just how, frankly, they just get on with it. I wouldn't be able to kind of almost, if I sort of really disliked a proposal or something, I wouldn't be able to stop myself, really. And basically, I'm always amazed. They're much more professional, I think, and they just get on with it. And simmering sort of a hatred and mistrust in the background, it really is, a really febrile, sort of kind of very, very toxic atmosphere, but they will get on with it and sort of kind of see out the other things, I'm sure, one of which, of course, VAR.
Yeah, amazing, really, as you say. Funny, we were there thinking that, these couple of weeks before the Euro start might be a little quiet. Manchester City in the Premier League had other ideas, clearly. OK, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages, including this in the Express. We're focusing on England, their preparations for European Championship in Germany, and how much of a part might Luke Shaw play. That and a number of other headlines that we're looking at. Stay with us. We're back in a couple of minutes. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home, and welcome back to the Sun's football editor Charlie Wyett and the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross. OK, I think we've done sort of Manchester City and Premier League, justice in that first part of the show. Let's turn our attention to something a little cheerier, shall we? And arguably England's best chance to win a major tournament with the Euros looming large. We know we've got this another friendly match to come, and then of course they embark in Group C. And of course, we're always looking around where there might be weaknesses, where you want things to be sort of shored up, for a better phrase. So let's talk about Luke Shaw, shall we? Shaw looks good. Defenders return to England training boosts Euros bid. This is nice, isn't it, John? Normally we're talking about metatarsals at this part of a tournament build-up. Not the case, and actually we've got bodies coming back into the building for Gareth Southgate. How crucial a boost do you think this is?
I think it's huge if he can indeed be fit for the final cut for the 26. I do think we'll see 7 players trimmed. I think they're already sort of kind of almost preparing for that, aren't they? A few whispers getting out tonight. So let's see about who might come. I don't think we'll be looking at Luke Shaw, bearing in mind he's not played since February for any of the group matches. But what I think the 26-man squad allows Gareth Southgate to do, rather than the traditional 23, is perhaps name 3 that he can take a punt on almost. So Harry Maguire hasn't played for a while. He loves Harry Maguire, really wants him to be part of it, but he's already cast aspersions on whether he can make the first group game. Sure, I think you're probably really only looking about the knockout stages. But Luke Shaw, David, we always forget, I think, Luke Shaw, what a quality player he is. Such a good defender. I think really tenacious in his defending, very good going forward, very accurate passer and crosser, good ball delivery. And I do think Shaw is the best option by far England have as a natural left-back. In fact, the only natural left-back in the squad. So they're prepared to take a weight on him. Listen, you'll see those pictures. He's still wearing trainers rather than football boots. So he's back on the grass, but not fully, completely involved yet. But the signs are good from a position whereby a couple of weeks ago it really looked too much of a long shot for Luke Shaw. But I do think Luke Shaw now has got a chance, and I actually think he might well take a chance on Luke Shaw for the cut-off, which has to be made by Friday.
Especially with 26 players in the party as opposed to the normal regulation 23. Charlie, can you see Luke Shaw maybe being an option for Gareth Southgate for a potential quarter-final or a semi-final?
Yes, certainly, as John said, I don't see him featuring in the group games if he does make it to Germany, which I think he probably will do. Again, as John said, I think had it been a 23-man squad, it'd have been a different situation. But yeah, look, England, they can have him in the background getting up to speed. He's England's best left back, obviously. probably the best left back in Europe, certainly one of them. So England needs, a fully fit Luke Shaw, and it's obviously going to take him a while to even get up to speed once he is training again. But I think, there are a few worries for England. That left back position is certainly one of them. Ideally Shaw will be back. England, of course, play Iceland on Friday. Gareth Southgate effectively has to email UEFA with his squad, his final squad, at 11 p.m. on Friday, and then England head off to Germany on Monday. So I'm pretty sure Luke Shaw will be with that squad, and let's hope he can get back. And I'm pretty sure England are going to make it into the last 16. He'll be there hopefully.
OK, let's turn our attention to the back of The Guardian. Because, well, we mentioned before about, certain things that, are very much tectonic plates are shifting, and, you can see there Barney Rainey on the legal case that could turn City into football's overlords. What about this Paul McInnes piece? Very, very briefly, John, the waiting game. Premier League admits the VAR delay skyrocketed last season. So are we making progress or are we not? Where do you sit on this with VAR?
No, I don't think we are. I really don't think we are, David. It worries me, to be honest. I do think that the clubs will give, I think, Howard Webb a bit of a hard time over VAR on Thursday. I do think they're very frustrated with it. Listen, I think Howard Webb will prove to be a good long-term appointment, but it's going to take time. I don't think the standard of officials is good enough. They're the ones operating the VAR, and I do think the PGMOL will have to look closer, much closer at themselves. And I think the clubs are really going to start asking much more difficult questions about it. The VAR, don't forget, it's up for a vote. That I'm sure it will remain in place. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But I do think that the clubs are really getting annoyed and frustrated with delays, lack of communication, and VAR generally. They need to address it. It's not good enough at the moment. No chance.
Just really, really briefly, Charlie, just 20 seconds or so. Obviously, it doesn't sound like Wolves are going to get the support that they want to try and abolish it next season, does it?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the right decision to stick with it. And let's not forget, next season we're going to have semi-automated, effectively robot linesmen. So the offsides are going to be much, much quicker, and we will notice a huge difference with that.
Fantastic. Gents, we've covered a lot in the show. Really appreciate your company as always. Charlie and John, we'll speak to you again very, very soon.